the Jerusalem temple, where the women wove robes for the Asherah idol. It is especially clear in the Revised Standard Version that the idol, or Asherah, was in the house of the Lord, not just adjacent, but in the house of the Lord, that is, in the Jerusalem temple built by King Solomon for Yahweh. This idolatrous image was indeed detestable, since it was a pole, stone, or totem carved in the shape of a giant phallus or penis. It was used to honor the goddess Ashtoreth. That is why it was called an Asherah. It was this image for which the women wove hangings or robes, which may have been pulled down to represent the foreskin being pulled back during a penile erection. Though you may think it absolutely unbelievable that the form of the penis was worshipped, all you have to do is wander past the display cases in most museums that house antiquities and take a look at the artifacts that have survived from both ancient Greek and Roman societies and from many earlier cultures and civilizations as well. You will find that in a majority of these pagan societies, the penis was idolized. The penis is still idolized and worshipped in many cultures today. As one example, all you need to do is put in the words, quote, Hunen Penis Fertility Festival, end quote, spelling the word Hunen as H-O-U-N-E-N, Hunen Penis Fertility Festival, into your internet search engine, and you will easily find pictures of people worshiping the penis today, even engraving their prayers on the sides of plastic and ceramic penises. In summary, the pagan deities that were worshipped, including Moloch, Baal, and Ashtoreth, had a significant impact not only on the Canaanite people, but also on the children of Israel. Though reforms were introduced at various times, they did not seem to do a lot of good relative to keeping the children of Israel from departing often from their worship of Yahweh. However, it should be noted that after exile due to their Babylonian captivity, the remnant of Jews who returned to the Promised Land never again returned to idolatry. The book of Maccabees relates how some Jews even preferred martyrdom rather than eating ceremonially unclean food, that is, food from animals sacrificed to idols. Lest you think that food sacrificed to idols is just an activity from the ancient past, when I was in Brazil doing my seminar and workshop entitled Christianity and Homosexuality Reconciled, I found many street vendors on street corners as well as throughout the streets who belonged to the Contemplum, selling meat that had been sacrificed to pagan gods and goddesses. This happens even today in many regions of the world. Going back to the Jews, it is their renewed commitment to Yahweh during the first century and their resolve to keep away from idolatry that helps us to understand the psychological profile of first century Jews, as well as the historical context for the Apostle Paul's horror and anger concerning sexual idolatry in the worship of fertility gods and goddesses. The Apostle Paul witnessed this worship during his own lifetime and reacted to it in his various epistles. I would now like to emphasize that when spoken of in a sexual context, dogs are male cult prostitutes, not homosexuals. In 1990, David H. Stern, who is a Messianic Jew, translated the New Testament from the original Greek in an attempt to bring out its Jewishness linguistically, culturally, religiously, and theologically. For the most part, he did an excellent job in producing a work most valuable for students of the New Testament who need to better recognize its Jewish roots. I say for the most part because of his mistranslation of the word dogs from the following verse, Revelation 22, verse 15. Quote, outside are the dogs, those who practice magic arts, the sexually immoral, the murderers, the idolaters, and everyone who loves and practices falsehood. End of quote. For God, practicing falsehood is not just lying, but devising a system of worship for anything other than the Lord God Almighty. The original Greek